So here's a few things that the principles help to explain for us. For example, why we get upset and how we get over things. You know how you can be upset for days and days and days and then suddenly you're over it? Well, how does that happen? Principles explain that. How past and future events can appear to influence present time experience. So it looks to us, it certainly looks to the field of psychology, that something that happened 40 years ago could still be impinging and affecting my life today. And if you ask me, I could find evidence that seems to support that. Say, yeah, you know, this is to do with the way that I was treated and this person and this difficult circumstance and so on and so on. Equally, if you ask a person, why are you feeling so scared and stressed, they can point to a future event that's not yet happening. And they will claim that it's because of that I'm feeling anxious, even though it's not happening. Okay? So again, the principles help to explain that. It's the invisible factor of thought that's happening behind the scenes. Why people react differently to the same stimulus. We've already touched on that. Football game example. Why an individual reacts differently to the same stimulus on different days. So you can be really upset about the traffic one day. The next day, you're in a different state of mind. You're in the same traffic, doesn't seem to bother you. How come? Principles explain that. Why psychological techniques are sometimes helpful and sometimes they're not. This was a big puzzle to me, is that I could do things with people that seemed to really help, and then I'd do it with the next person, it didn't help at all. Or I'd do it with the same person on another occasion, and it didn't help at all. It was diminishing returns after a certain point. That was very puzzling to me, how people could seem to get terrific benefit and then no benefit from the same apparent procedure. Used to frustrate me a lot. The principles help you to understand that. What they showed to me, this was one of the big insights I had, was that the technique itself never helped anybody. Sorry guys. That was a shocker to me when I saw that. It really was a shocker. What I saw was that the technique was only helpful if the person had an insight. If they had an insight, meaning that their consciousness shifted, they saw something they hadn't seen before, well then it would look like the technique helped them. If they didn't have the insight, it doesn't matter how hard or often or consistently they did the technique, if there was no shift in consciousness, there was no transformation. It was as simple as that. That's why most of the techniques I was using fell away overnight. Because I realized it was all about transformation on the inside. It wasn't about anything that the person was going through or I was putting them through. And also how it is that instantaneous and lasting transformation is possible for anybody no matter what. And this was one of the big puzzles, as I said, for the psychologists. How is it that people who've been suffering and struggling for a long, long time can spontaneously transform without even working on their problems? Again, the principles explain that. One of my teachers, who some of you may have come across, Dr. Keith Blevins, he said, he's pointing to something about the principles which is one of the fundamental truths that it uncovers. When people insightfully realize that thought and feeling are inseparable, it changes their perception, experience, and the behavior. Human problems are the thinking, feeling, and behavioral results of misunderstanding this inseparability. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but essentially what he's saying is that we've made a mistake in separating thought and feeling and treating them as two different things. And this was really the first major insight that Sid Banks had. He saw that his feelings were being produced by his thinking in the moment, not by anything else. And then he saw that all feelings were produced in exactly the same way for every human being. He saw that it wasn't just personal to him, that it was actually a principle. It's like, oh my God, that's how feelings get created. Whatever thought is passing through consciousness in the moment will produce the corresponding feeling for us. It's that simple. And miraculously, we've managed not to see that for the last several thousand years. Because it's so close to us, it's a bit like the fish in water. It's so close to us, it's invisible to us. It's what we would put in the category blindingly obvious. It's blindingly obvious, it's so obvious we can't see it. But I'm not asking you to take my word for this. This would be something that you can run the experiment in your own time, in your own life. Whenever you catch yourself feeling something, check in with yourself. Is that feeling coming from something outside of me, something that I'm attaching it to or associating it with, or is it coming from my thoughts in this moment? And see. Just see what occurs to you. And just that piece alone changes people's lives. As soon as you see that all of your feelings have been generated from your own thinking, it completely reorients you in life. Why? First of all, you stop wasting all your energy trying to get your ducks to line up on the outside. Because you suddenly realize, wait a minute, all those things I thought I needed in order to feel good, I don't need. Because the good feeling can only ever come from me. And all those things I've been trying to avoid or manipulate in order to avoid feeling bad, I don't have to do that anymore. Because they don't really have the power to make me feel bad, unless I think about them a certain way. And the beautiful thing about thought is that it can change. We can change our mind about anything. Really, about anything. And with a change of mind, we sometimes call it a change of heart. You know, when you have a change of heart, what that means is that you feel differently about something that you felt a certain way about. It's always available to us. It's the nature of thought to change. It's not we're not designed to think the same way about something for the whole duration of our life. Thought is actually by nature very fluid. And if we allow thought to change, which it will do by itself, then our feeling tracks it. Our feeling automatically changes. And the interesting thing is that when you're thinking about something or someone changes, your feeling changes, your experience of that will change. In sometimes quite spooky ways. It will look like other people have become nicer to you, for example. Now, have they really become nicer to you? Or are you experiencing them differently? Well, we can't really say, because all we have is our own experience. Right? You can't separate, you can't take your own experience out of the equation. That's really all we have. That's what we're living in, is our own thought-created experience. We think that life is a certain way for everybody, and it isn't. And this is why it can be so fluid and why it can change so miraculously and so quickly, is because it's no more fixed than a thought. Sid Banks used to say, you're one thought away from perfect mental health, peace of mind, and everything else that you're looking for. One thought away. How long does a thought take? It's a moment in time. So all the lovely feelings that we spend a lot of our time, and probably most of your clients will spend a lot of the time trying to get more of, trying to get into their life. According to this understanding, these feelings are actually built into us from the get-go. We don't have to do anything to make them happen. That our default position as human beings is inner peace, clarity of mind, calm, love, compassion, all the good stuff, gratitude, joy. Those lovely feelings that we strive to make happen, they're actually our default setting. That's what we naturally come back to if we're not using thought in a way that takes us away from them. Now, this is a game changer for anybody that realizes this. Is that you don't have to do anything to generate those nice, lovely, positive feelings that you know are your birthright. You can't do anything to generate them because they're built in. They're actually built in. They arise naturally when we stop using thought to take ourselves away from them. It turns the tables somewhat on the whole positive psychology thing. What we tend to assume when we get into a feeling state that we don't like, particularly if it's chronically, we tend to assume there's something wrong with me. Either there's something wrong with someone out there, why are they doing that to me? Or we turn it against ourselves and say, well, what's wrong with me? Sid Banks had been doing this all his life. He suddenly said, well, there's nothing wrong with anyone. We all are perfectly okay on the inside, and the worst that we can do is that we use the gift of thought unconsciously, unwittingly, we use it against ourselves to create an experience that we then say we don't like, that we don't want to have. That's the only way that we can put ourselves into a state of mind and a feeling state that is unpleasant, is by using the gift of thought. There's no other way it can happen. The outside world can't do it to us. Other people can't do it to us. We have to do it to ourselves. As soon as you see that, as I've already said, you're liable to stop doing it. Now, just a little word of warning. When people hear this, very often they go, okay, I get it, it's all thinking, it's my thinking, what do I do to change it? Okay, and you become the thought police for your own erroneous thinking. You don't want to go down that route. What you're doing there is you're going into the realm of what's already been created, and you're trying to improve and sugarcoat and turn it into a nicer version of what's already been created. What you want to see is that there's a power at work that's doing the creating, that's capable of creating something new and fresh in any moment. Okay? So there's no point in trying to change a thought and feeling that you're already suffering the consequence of. Why? It's already out the bag. And if you're feeling something that you don't like, it's too late to change that. That ship's already sailed, we could say. That thought has already happened. That feeling has already been experienced. The moment we say, I don't like it, I want to change it, what do? We keep it alive. We keep it awake for longer. We get to experience more of it. The more we say, I don't like it, the longer it seems to stick around. You know the old adage, what we resist persists? The principles explain that. They show us how and why, what's the actual mechanics of that. We all know intuitively that that's true in our experience. This actually helps you to understand what's behind it. So you don't have to do anything with the thinking that's not serving you. You simply have to recognize the nature of it. Equally, you don't have to try and get rid of all your thinking either. So some people just have a kind of blanket attitude, okay, if I can just clear my head completely and make all my thinking go away, then I'll be in a place of no thought, then I'll be fine. Not necessary. We're meant to have thought. It's thought that colors and enriches our human experience. Wouldn't be much fun without it. So the idea is not to get rid of thought, nor is it to manage and manipulate thought. It's simply recognizing the nature of it. How do we do that? Through what we call insight. Insight, dictionary definition, an instance of apprehending the true nature of a thing, especially through intuitive understanding. That's how this works on you. You see it for yourself. You catch a glimpse of it. What's even more bizarre, I know many people who have told me, Ian, I don't understand this at all. I get the theory, but I really don't understand it. It's not making sense to me. And then they go off and change their life. And they still say, I really don't know what this is. I still don't know what it is. And they continue to transform their life in beautiful ways. Insight gets under the radar of what we think we know. Insight means that it's essentially a new thought that you've never thought before. It's coming directly from that intelligence behind life. That's why it has a quality of freshness to it. It inspires, it uplifts us. The calling card of insight is a nice feeling. That's how you can recognize it. It's like a breath of fresh air. You're struggling with something, you're up against something, and then there's a feeling of possibility, hope, freedom, etc., etc. So insight, it slips in usually when we're not looking for it. That's just the nature of insight. But that's the only way that I know that these principles can come to life in any of us. But the good thing is, we are all in the same boat, as Sydney Banks pointed out. There aren't any exceptions. Every human being is capable of insight. It doesn't matter how long we've been struggling with a particular train of thought. It really doesn't. There's no time duration involved in insight. It operates completely independently of time and space. So, sorry if I'm sending you to sleep. It's something that we don't make happen. That's the beauty of it, and it can also be the frustration. It's like, okay, I'm ready, give me an insight, I want to see this. You don't make insight happen by that. It happens by itself just by being open and having a relaxed, open mind. So, last thing, the implications of the three principles. All of our experience is created 100% from the inside out. None of it is actually coming to us from the outside. Another way of putting that, life happens through us, not to us. That's the radical shift that this brings about. Some of you may be familiar with the book by Michael Neal, The Inside Out Revolution. 3 principles based book, which I could highly recommend. Well-being is our natural state. It's the natural condition of every human being. We don't have to work on or develop that. We're born with it. It's our birthright. It stays with us throughout life. The worst that can happen is that we cover it up unwittingly with our own thinking. So we create the illusion that we've lost it. But actually it can't be lost. Isn't that good news? That again is a game changer for the field of psychology. There aren't any people who are broken or damaged or who can't come back to well-being. There's one mind, if you like, one power, but 7 billion human beings, we're all using that power in our own unique way. Essentially, we're all living in our own thought-created bubble. Separate realities. It's a very helpful thing to understand, particularly in your personal relationships. If If I had more time, I'd love to say more about that. Thought and feeling are inseparable. One of the things that Keith Blevins highlights. Just seeing that alone is very, very helpful. We have an unlimited capacity for new thought. Unlimited capacity for new thought. There isn't one way we have to think and feel about anything. That's very liberating for us to realize. We don't have to feel a certain way about something. We don't have to get upset about something that we say is upsetting for us. We certainly don't have to stay upset for any particular time duration. We're making that up. And when we see that we're making it up, it becomes negotiable, becomes optional. There's a single cause of all psychological problems. There aren't 1,000 different mental health problems. There's only one. It's the innocent misuse of the gift of thought, using it against ourselves without realizing it. Boy, wouldn't that simplify mental health services? Big implications for mental health services here, which have yet to be realized on a big scale. William James, who I quoted at the beginning, he said, when the principles underlying psychological experience are realized, or are discovered and realized on a large scale, he said it will be the most significant human discovery since fire. That's what he predicted over 100 years ago. I'd say that that's available to us now. And finally, transformation follows insight. It's not related to technique, procedure, ritual. It doesn't have anything to do with upbringing or intelligence in the normal way that we talk about that. Insight is the change agent. And that really makes your job and my job a whole lot easier. I can't tell you what a weight that takes off your shoulders. You don't have to be the expert. If you know that every human being is capable of having insight, all we have to do is create a conducive atmosphere in which insight is likely to happen. They do the rest. They do the rest, and they value the fact that it came from them. I know you've seen this in your own work, that the change that sustains people is when they see something from themselves. It's not something that's been imposed on them from the outside. So I know that you know this, and it will enhance and empower your clients in ways that you've probably already stumbled upon at times throughout your work, but it will help you to see what's going on there so that that can become a consistent feature of your work. Whew, we got there. Sorry if I ran a little bit quickly there. I just wanted to cover it. I think we're just about in time. And thank you to Stu and Liz for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. Hope I've managed to plant a few seeds which will get watered by my friends and colleagues here through the rest of the day. And if any of you want to ask me anything, I don't think we have time for questions right now.
No, but we've made time later on.
We've got time later on, and if you want to catch me in the breaks or lunchtime, please feel free. You can ask me anything. Thank you so much for listening.